All right, every sport today. We're back. 2 straight episodes, 2 straight days. That's kind of how the playoffs need to be. College football, NFL, same weekend. It's important for us to talk about all of it. So we were joined by Mr. Barkwell talking about the
Yes, sir.
CFP. The CFP,
It was
the old,
pretty awesome, man.
yeah. We had two good games. We've said a lot about the CFP so far. This week delivered. It was two good games. Like, what else could you ask for?
If you're scoreboard watching, it only looks like there was one good game, but the one game that was a 14-point game was actually a very good game. If you watch the game,
Exactly.
you understand why.
Yeah, if you're scoreboard watching, you see, a 14-point game, but all 14 of those points that won them the game came in the fourth quarter. One off a terrible turnover that we'll get to. But yeah, listen, it was a good week. Did this, let's ask this off the top. Do you think this kind of salvaged some of the CFP for you? Because it wasn't necessarily the best. I think we had one really good game and then some very mediocre games throughout the entire playoff so far. Do you think this weekend salvaged it a little bit?
I wouldn't even say it necessarily needed to salvage it. We kind of talked about how it's been a little bit of a letdown, but that's just kind of how football is. A lot of the times when you're in the playoffs, you're going to have blowouts. We saw it this week in the NFL. There was only one good game. The rest of them were all blowouts. So I think we're going to see this consistently in the college football playoff going on in the future. Is there's going to be quite a bit of games that really aren't that competitive and that close because we talked about this for years about people arguing oh, what about us? We should get in. You should make it a 12-team playoff. Well, we're seeing it. If you're an 11 seed, you have a few losses, meaning you're not that great of a team. You don't have a perfect team where your abilities to go in and win every game are there. You have flaws. And we saw that with teams like SMU, Clemson, Indiana. So that's just something I feel like we're going to see. Now, with that being said, this weekend was great. The games were a lot closer, and I think that just happens within the playoffs in general. When you have the rounds go further on, you have the better teams go against better teams. And that's what we saw with Notre Dame, Penn State. They're relatively the same team playing against each other. That's what I loved about that game was both their defenses are incredible, especially their front sevens.
Yeah.
And it looked early on Penn State is just a little bit better than them because Penn State was up 10-0. And I thought Penn State was going to control the line of scrimmage the rest of the game and just kind of squeeze out a win.
Yeah.
Notre Dame kept fighting back, though, man. There was a few big plays they had there. Of course, that Julian Love run where he didn't give up there at the goal line was great.
Mm-hmm.
Littlefield had that huge reception on the field. It was a 60-yard reception on the wheel route that Riley Leonard threw. That's the thing about Riley Leonard, though, is the passes he did make in this game were wide open. We still haven't seen him make incredible passes downfield where we're like, oh my God, that's a quarterback that can win a national championship. And he's at the national championship now. That's how good this Notre Dame team is he only had to throw for 93 yards against Georgia. And then the Penn State game, he had a bad pick early on in the game across the field. And I believe he had 2 picks in that game.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he played perfect. Now, going on to Penn State with Drew Aller, we saw the pick later on in the game that was bad. He's not.
Let's pause a little bit here because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much because we're going to talk about this game in further detail. But I just wanted to talk about this from a CFP overall standpoint in what we're looking at. And I think you said a lot of the right stuff, which is one, that first weekend is tough, right? Because you take these teams that have obvious flaws, Clemson, Indiana, SMU, right? You take these teams with obvious flaws and then you say, hey, you have to go play on the road against, for example, a Texas team who was just ranked number 2 in the nation before losing the week before to Georgia, right? So it's how much can we really say that that's going to fix itself out? I don't think it's going to fix anything in the near future. I think those games might just continue to be blowouts. However, it's the second weekend that we expect to be different, right? We can't expect the 4 teams who get a bye to just continuously lose that round, right? So while we may get continuous matchups in the first round being hey, we have teams with flaws who have to go on the road and play these tough road environments, they might lose consistently. But you have these teams who get a first round bye. They're going to start to figure out how to play with that late game bye. I've mentioned it to the baseball thing multiple times, but it's very relevant, right? They're going to figure that out. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I definitely think they will too with the committee. There's definitely going to be flaws in the first year of the concept. We're definitely seeing that. Of course, with the seeding is the number one thing, like you brought up. with Oregon having to play Ohio State that first round. I think it was the worst one as far as the seeding, but they're going to get that fixed. They're already talking about fixing that next year.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's dive into the games then. We talked about the CFP and the future of it. Let's talk about the games because there were a couple of really, really great games. One, especially over the other, and it was a game that I did not expect to be this great.
No.
But let's start with the Notre Dame Penn State part because you already kind of talked about it. We already kind of dove into it. We already kind of got into the minutia of it. However, I kind of want to talk about it in a little bit more detail because there was a lot that came out of this matchup. We'll talk about the Penn State side, but I want to talk about the Notre Dame side first. I mean, they keep impressing us every week. Week after week, they just keep getting better and better. And this was another impressive showing. They don't have to do anything incredible. They just get the job done and win. What stood out to you the most from Notre Dame in this game that they got the job done and they were able to win this football game?
Definitely the second half, because Penn State, to me, kind of controlled the first half relatively.
Yeah.
In the second half, it seemed like Notre Dame, anytime Penn State scored and did something good, they did it right back. And it kept going back and forth like that. And Notre Dame just kept taking advantage of situations. And it led all the way until the very basically end of the game where Drew Aller threw that pick. And they got the chance to kick the field goal, and their field goal kicker even made it too. I mean, there was moments earlier in the game where Notre Dame's the jitters definitely popped out, like that Riley Leonard pick where he threw it down the field, threw it like into 4 Penn State defenders. It was terrible.
That was such a bad throw.
Terrible. It was awful. And when I saw that, I was like, probably the end of the road for Notre Dame. This is a good Penn State team. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. They're going to run the ball. But credit to Julian Love, man, for Notre Dame. I love that guy, man. I really do.
Jeremiah Love.
Julian Love, sorry. But
you're thinking of what's the new CU quarterback? Julian Lewis or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the number 1 recruit guy. Yeah, he's good.
Well, okay.
Jeremiah Love.
I was just watching the 6 o'clock news here, and so they were talking about Dion leaving the program, possibly for the Cowboys, and they did bring up like the roster for CU, so I think I heard the Julian. But dude, Jeremiah Love, awesome. I mean, not only that run at the goal line where like he just like willed himself through, basically like 5 Penn State defenders get to the end zone and like stretch the ball out. Yeah. I mean, he was doing incredible stuff like that the entire game. He hurdled a guy on Penn State, just really jumped over him. That was incredible too. He had another run, just burst it off downfield, straight through the middle too. I mean, he had an incredible game. I think if it goes down to it, Notre Dame wins the national championship, he's probably going to be like their best player through the playoffs so far. Is Jeremiah 100%.
Let me hype up Jeremiah Love even more real quick.
Yeah.
Because they were talking, first off, he's banged up. He's been banged up for weeks now. They have had no break outside of the conference championship weekend. Like they had that break. I guess that kind of counts as a break for them. But like they have not had a lot of time off. No. They're going to get a little over a week in this game to prepare for Ohio State. So hopefully he's able to be healthy a little bit. But like they were talking on the broadcast about how he's not allowed to hurdle people anymore. Like they said that he shouldn't be hurdling people because of his foot, and he loves hurdling people. I think he has like more hurdles than any other running back in the league this year.
And he promised it before the game that he wouldn't do it, and he did it.
Yes, and then he did it in a crucial moment.
It was incredible,
and it was a great play. It was a great play. It was insane. And that run that he had, the touchdown run, one of the best runs all year. Yeah. Like it's hard to find a better run this year. He's just a dog, man. He's just a dog. Like doing what he's doing with the injuries that he has is really impressive. So,
yeah, I mean, he had a huge game against Indiana as well in the first round of the playoffs. So,
yeah,
I'm expecting him to have a huge game against Ohio State. He needs to do this next week for them to win.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to me about what was the game changer in this game with Notre Dame that led to them winning this game and then gives you a possibility of, hey, can they beat Ohio State? What was that one bright spot for them where it's like,
for me,
if they do this, they will beat Ohio State?
For me, it's their defense. With Ohio State, their running game, if not as the same or better than what Penn State's was, and that's what Penn State did well in this game, is run the ball. Both Singleton and Katron Allen had over 80 yards combined. It's about 160. That's great for them in a game. They usually do better, but that's against Notre Dame's defense. They have to get better on that. I do think they did better in the second half than they did in the first half, controlling the line of scrimmage. versus the run. So I feel like that's going to be a huge factor because if they can control the line of scrimmage against Ohio State and kind of neutralize that and force Will Howard to throw the ball, Ohio State does have a lot of weapons, but I feel like Will Howard will make some mistakes against Notre Dame's defense.
Yeah, I agree.
That was
The defense.
Go ahead.
The defense was the big thing for me because it's like you look at Ohio State, you look at the weapons they have, you look at the wide receivers that they have because they have been wide receiver U for a pretty long time in the NFL now, and they have two guys right now who are going to be certified starters in the NFL. And when Smith comes out, he could be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Smith, that's how good he is. So when you consider how good their wide receivers are, and you consider the fact that Notre Dame just had a game where they let up 0 receptions to wide receivers, that is incredible because that's going to be the game changer for me. And we'll talk about the preview for the matchup a little bit later. But like the fact that Notre Dame is coming off a game where they have allowed 0 receptions to a wide receiver, and now they have to go up against Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, and just all their guys. Like it's going to be a tough battle for them.
It definitely is because Penn State's wide receivers just don't add up. And I think that was a huge problem for Drew Aller in this game. I don't want to throw all the blame on him. He didn't have a great game. He only had like 154 yards passing. He had that crucial pick at the end. Didn't have any touchdowns. I'm not impressed by this guy. I've never really been impressed by him, and I've always heard all this hype about him. And every time I watch him, I don't see anything incredible about him. I see a game manager, and it was so funny. Everyone else talked about this about Greg McElroy on the live broadcast. Talked about this guy that doesn't make mistakes in this type of situation, and then like 2 plays later, throws a pick across the middle.
Yeah, exactly. It was amazing.
That's going to be for Notre Dame is. They're going to have to watch a lot of film on the Penn State game and realize what they did well at stopping Penn State's wide receivers, but realize they're going to have to take a step up against Ohio State's guys. Because another thing about Penn State, too, is their wide receivers really aren't that great. They rely on their running backs and their tight ends in the passing game, too.
Exactly.
Penn State, man, I don't know why they changed their game plan, it felt like. Like, they were really controlling the clock. They had the ball. They're running the ball well. And then they just try to start getting fancy, and they try to start scoring, and then like they give the ball back to Notre Dame, and then they score, and I'm like, dude, slow it down. You guys have control of the game. Like this is your game to lose, and you guys are going to lose it, and they did.
Well, and the crazy part about this game is like the thing that changed this game was a backup quarterback for Notre Dame came in and led a drive that led to a field goal to end the half. That was the game changer. Yeah, he was 6 for 7 for 44 yards. Like that's an incredible stat line for having to come off the bench after like not playing all season.
Steve Angeli
trying to fill in for Steve Angeli. I was like, wow, this is a great name. The Angels coming in to save them. But like he led a great drive. They got the field goal. They got all the momentum on their side going into halftime, and they carried that in to start the half. And then it just felt like it was over.
Yeah.
Like Penn State had their chances to get back into it, but they didn't. And they didn't control the clock well, even though they ran the ball well. It was just weird from Penn State. Penn State, they did, I believe it was yesterday or today, I saw Drew Aller's coming back, Nicholas Singletary's coming back, Katron Allen's coming back. So they're bringing back their 3 main guys. However, they are losing Tyler Warren. He is going to the NFL. So
expected though.
Yeah, exactly. I expected Drew Aller to go. I don't know why he's coming back. I mean, he's going to be like, he would have been a top 3 quarterback in this draft class. Like he probably would have been the 3rd best quarterback in this draft class, which is just absurd.
I guess, but I just feel like I don't think he would have really got a shot in the NFL because he doesn't have that great a tape to me.
He doesn't. But like, how many teams need a quarterback in the NFL right now? That's why Cam Ward and Shador are 1 and 2 because like everyone needs a quarterback when these guys aren't being ranked as high via scouts and stuff like that.
I feel like in the NFL, though, it just kind of like recirculates. Not every year teams are so quarterback heavy, like they really need quarterbacks. This year we have a few teams that really do. Like, of course, you kind of see in New York.
Oakland. Or not Oakland, Las Vegas.
Oakland, yeah. They definitely need a quarterback. I don't know if that. Yeah. They're going to run back this O'Connell Minshew thing.
I think Oakland and Las Vegas Raiders both need a quarterback.
The thing about this, too, is Riley Leonard's coming out in the draft. I don't see him really getting drafted that high.
No. This quarterback draft sucks. But like that's why I don't understand why Drew Aller's not coming out. Like he would have been a top 5 quarterback in this draft class. Next year's draft class isn't great either for quarterbacks, but like next year he's going to be middle of the pack too. So
I feel like with Drew Aller, he's not mature enough to go to the NFL, and what he's looking at is like, why don't I come back for another year, not only improve myself as a quarterback, but realistically looking at it for Penn State next year, they're losing guys, yeah, but the Big Ten next year, Ohio State, Aaron Nolan left. Who's going to be their quarterback at Ohio State?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
They'll find another. I actually don't know if they will find another transfer.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough.
Michigan's going to have a really young team next year. I don't know how great they're going to be. Indiana's losing basically everybody because this whole year they had like 5-year, 6-year seniors on that team. So who in the Big Ten is really going to come out and win the conference? Probably going to be Penn State. If I'm looking at it, Oregon too.
Oregon and Penn State, but even Oregon, no Dylan Gabriel, so
yeah,
no Tez Johnson, so they have to they do have to replace guys. I'm sure Dan Lanning's good enough to be able to figure that out, but to your point, I like Penn State next year. You know, Aller, Singleton, Katron Allen, like those are guys who are coming back and they're really good, so they'll be solid again next year. The question is, can they get over this hump? And I think they'll have a lot of confidence coming off of a semifinal appearance this year. So we'll see them next year. We'll see what they look like.
Absolutely. And then
I'm not excited about it.
Penn State, you had Abdul Carter in this game too. I mean, he's probably going to be the second overall pick in the draft. Just depending on, there's probably going to be some trades in the draft. We don't know what's going to happen. But
he was a beast in this game, still being banged up. He was still incredible.
The one play I'm going to say, scouts are going to pull up for him and show him. Over pursued on that Jeremiah Love goal line where Jeremiah Love got in the end zone. He could have easily tackled him. He almost like sprints right past him and just kind of throws his arms at him and then he falls to the ground.
Yeah. He's got the aggressive pass rusher thing where it's like, nope, not setting the edge.
Like that's a situation.
Just get there.
Just like, and he like ran straight in, like just basically like attack him, and then he like mismanaged where he's gonna run to, and he just like whiffed him.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, Abdul Carter pro comp kind of reminds me of a little bit of a bigger Von Miller. The way he jumps the snap count and he's able to just like jump past the left tackle. That's a really, really elevated skill. He's got such a fast twitch.
Here's my pro comp. Just Micah Parsons because he went to Penn State and wears the exact same number. Because pro comps are stupid. And so I'm going off of what school he went to and what number he wears. That's my pro comp.
Yeah.
Because I think pro comps are...
When I just watch him play...
I do see Von Miller, though.
I think Von Miller when I watch Abdul Carter.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump over to the other game. Ohio State comes out on top on Texas, 28-14. Obviously, the story of this game is the Quinn Ewers turnover. That's where we need to start. That's where we need to finish this game. Jack Sawyer, the old roommate of Quinn Ewers, gets him in the end. Obviously, they're still friends at the end of the day, but I think Quinn Ewers said something along the lines of like, well, fuck you after the game.
And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
Dude, you just lost the game. You're out of the, you're out. Like, I get you guys are like homies or whatever, but I know myself for like how competitive I am. I would not be that way if that was like you or something. I wouldn't
have talked to him.
I would be really mad. I mean, I'd be upset. I just lost the big game. Like, and you don't get to go on the national championship. And to me, this is my issue with Quinn Ewers. He kind of has that like nonchalant, like, I don't really care kind of attitude to him. And I don't really ever see his attitude get like elevated in like a situation, like a tense situation. And you need him to be like really confident and stern and be like the leader to lean on. He's not that guy. I don't know what NFL team can draft him and be like, this guy can be a starter on my team. I don't see him being a leader at all. I don't know him though. So I can't, I'm talking as like a commentator. I don't see him at practices or anything, but I could just see him as like an NFL guy, being a guy showing up late to meetings, not really getting engaged with the team as far as like in the locker room. Just doesn't seem like that type of guy. Arch does, but he doesn't.
Yeah, he gives a little Justin Herbert vibes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved, so I'm not like necessarily looked at as this great leader, but I'm still your starting quarterback. The only difference between him and Justin Herbert is Justin Herbert has elite arm talent. I don't think Quinn Ewers even comes close to an elite arm talent level.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just, like, if I'm trying to compare him to Justin Herbert, are you kidding me? That's night and day difference. Herbert's arm talent over his. So yeah, if you don't have the leadership and you don't have the arm talent, those are two things that a quarterback needs. So
that's the thing with Quinn Ewers too. Is when he was coming out of South Lake Carroll, it was really like, oh, his arm talent is amazing. It is,
yeah,
but there's a lot of really great quarterbacks out there. I don't see him as an elite quarterback, and I think it really
here's
shows as you get later on in your career. My other bad thing about Quinn Ewers is his body language on the field. It's a bit of
yeah,
that. I don't care. Hands are always on his hips, man. Whenever I'm watching
yeah,
the game, he's always just hands around his hips. He's got this kind of like look on his face, like just like, when's this going to be over?
yeah. Here's the
And I
thing
see him
for
kind
Quinn
of
Ewers.
throw
If you're
balls deep sometimes, where he doesn't really even know where he's throwing to. He just sees a guy. He's like, "Oh, I'll throw it deep."
yeah, that's fair. Here's the thing about Ewers, man. Like, if there was a game that he was going to get up for and he was going to try and torch them, it would have been this game, and he just didn't do it.
No,
I feel like Quinn Ewers gets carried because of one Alabama game last season, and that's pretty much it.
that's it.
So outside of that game, it's kind of like, well, what have you really done? Like, talking about arm talent, stuff like that. There hasn't been a single moment this year where I'm like, this guy has great arm talent.
No, and
Like, I think it's very, very mediocre.
A veteran player. This isn't like a young guy, Quinn Ewers. So
exactly.
And my other big bad thing about him was that possession at the goal line. You know which one I'm talking about. They have a chance to tie the game. They have the ball about 6 times because of the penalty, the pass interference penalty. Like, you got to find a way to get the ball in the end zone as a quarterback. Look at the defense. Audible to something. Like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
I don't
There's
understand.
just absolutely no excuse.
If you're a young quarterback, I'll give you, like, oh, yeah, well, that's a situation. He doesn't know what to do. Like, nah, you've been in these situations before. Like, kind of man up, man. Let's do it. This is University of Texas.
Exactly.
You're playing Ohio State, game for the national championship. You need to tie it. I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah. I agree. It's the turnover is one of the worst turnovers that I've seen in a very long time. It's just completely inexcusable. That is something that you cannot do there. So,
well, let's
talk about Ohio State.
I'm not going to blame. I want to bring one more thing up. I'm not going to blame him fully. I'm going to blame Steve Sarkisian too.
Oh yeah.
Why not throw Arch in the game and do a QB sneak? You're on the first 2 yard line, then you get the ball on the 1 yard line. Why not just do a QB sneak or run the ball?
Or just do it with Quinn Ewers.
I didn't get it. Even with Ewers, they could have done it.
Yeah, every quarterback who plays college football or NFL can get a yard on a QB sneak nowadays. Why couldn't you just do that? I don't understand.
Well, it's like he's thinking way too hard about it. They ran one play up the middle, and they ran it out of the gun.
Yeah.
Anyways, dude, Ohio State, like you said, moving on Ohio State, bro. Really impressed by them again, but they were a little bit sluggish in the game, and I'll give credit to Texas's defense. They were giving them some issues. This wasn't the Ohio State team we've seen the past couple weeks where they were scoring 42 points a game. Of course, it's only about 2 touchdowns off. They almost got to it. But I think teams are starting to figure out how to kind of slow them down, like Texas did, and Notre Dame is going to do a good job of it this week, I think, too.
That's kind of exactly how I felt, where it's like, it felt like Ohio State in this game tried to do what they normally do, and they just got shut down defensively.
Yeah.
Like, they just weren't able to do it properly. I think a lot of the reason Ohio State won this game, obviously a bad turnover in the red zone when you could make a million other plays, but also that 75-yard touchdown to TreVeyon Henderson on the screen to end the second half. Like, that's inexcusable. There were 2 touchdowns that Ohio State had in this game that were basically inexcusable on Texas's end. And that's what changed the game. That's what pivoted this, right? Like, that's what swung this. So I think Texas did a great job defensively, but Ohio State took advantage of terrible situations. Ohio State did not play a great game in this game. They're going to have to play a great game against Notre Dame because I think Texas defense has been really good this year, but Notre Dame's is still on a different level. So I don't know. Did you feel that way about Ohio State where it's like, hey, you kind of got lucky. 2 plays went your way. Good for you guys, but this wasn't impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because, I mean, Texas later in the game, I kind of had that feeling the crowd was starting to get behind them. I'm like, I think Texas might win this game, man. Especially when they got the ball on the 1 yard line and they were about to tie it.
Yeah.
I thought they had a chance. I mean, Ohio State wasn't looking their best. They kind of felt like they had like the Monday blues or something going on. I didn't understand what was going on with them. They were really sluggish. One thing I got to say about Ohio State, they have some SEC guys on their team, and one of the guys, the biggest one, Quinshon Judkins, that came from Ole Miss to Ohio State to play football there. And I heard Ryan Russillo talk about this recently. you're seeing guys from the SEC move to Big Ten teams to go play
Yeah.
big boy football and play a championship level football. That's not a good look
Yeah.
for the SEC. And I'm repping SEC team right now, Florida. Like the SEC, it's almost getting to a point where we're gonna have to talk about. They need to step it up because some of these Big Ten teams are gonna be able to go into recruiting situations and tell kids that.
Yeah. Judkins could have went back to Ole Miss and been on a top 5 SEC team and decided not to.
Yeah,
That's a big tell, right? Like that's something that's going to be important.
like if you're an Ohio State recruit and if I'm Ryan Day, I'm gonna have Quinshon Junkins call the guy. And if he's deciding
Yeah.
between an SEC school and Ohio State, and he's going to tell him situations like, bro, I was in the SEC for this long. However, I didn't get to go to the playoffs at all. Had all this great
Yeah.
roster and everything. I go to Ohio State first year there. I get to go to a national championship game.
Or you just say we beat Texas and Georgia.
Yeah, and like, I mean, if you say the type of teams you get to play against, it's pretty incredible.
And Tennessee. They beat Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia. They beat the 3 SEC teams that are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And then if you're Michigan, you can be like, well, I beat that Ohio State team.
And then we beat Ohio State teams. So
and we beat Alabama, which was one of your best teams too. So it's not looking good, dude, for them.
Yeah, it's fair.
And it was bad having Texas as like their last guy holding the flag because it's the new guy.
Yeah.
You have your new guy holding the flag for you going to the big battle. That's not what you want, dude.
All the Texas fans chanting SEC. You think they're doing that? No chance.
And I will say,
throwing
I
up
think
the hook 'em.
SEC teams, they're going to rise up. It's going to happen.
It's the SEC. Like nothing changes.
It's going to be. I think it's
Alabama.
It's been dormant though a little bit because the year before too, who won the national championship?
I mean,
Michigan.
Yeah,
they played against Washington in the national championship game.
Okay, it's been 2 years. Relax.
I know. I'm an SEC guy. I'm just saying though, the run of dominance is pretty much it's over because the SEC was winning every single year.
I think this is once again a relaxed situation. SEC homer. You haven't been to the national championship game in 2 years. Whoa, who the fuck cares?
For me as an SEC fan, it's a panic situation because we're not like other conferences where like we let this kind of stuff go. You know, like we have to be the best, and this is not good right now. I can't go into a sports bar, and if I get in an argument with a Big Ten guy, I can't win the argument right now.
You're a pick me girl right now. Oh, we can't go into a bar and have an argument with for Big Ten fans. Like, oh my gosh, this is very pick me energy right here.
It's not looking good, dude. It's not. It's really not. Like we can't even. We used to have Saban to like, lean back on.
Yeah,
like, Bama, save us, please. And they were always there for us, dude. And Georgia looked like they were going to be that team, but there's cracks in them, dude. We're seeing it. Kirby's not safe.
True. Very true. I want to talk more about Ohio State because I think Texas is a really good defense. And I think Notre Dame is a really good defense. I think Notre Dame's defense is probably a little bit better. I think it's close. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's pretty borderline the same. Ohio State in this game, the one thing that they did was, one, they ran the ball efficiently, but not a lot, which was an issue. Will Howard threw the ball 33 times in this game. Jeremiah Smith only had 1 reception. Egbuka 5 for 51, so that's like decent, but you would expect more. However, Carnell Tate was incredible in this game, 7 for 87. So it's like they're still going to find their guys. They're still going to be able to get their weapons open. Do you think Notre Dame can slow down every single one of their weapons? Because I think, like we saw it against Penn State, they still got the ball to Tyler Warren, right? Like they shut down their wide receivers pretty well, but Singleton and Allen were absolutely running the ball down their throats. And then Tyler Warren had a good game. Like, how is Notre Dame going to be adjusting to Ohio State's offense and the fact that they just have so many guys?
I'm going to watch, if I'm a Notre Dame defensive player, defensive coach, I'm going to show my guys 3 different games this season from Ohio State. And I'm not going to show them the Oregon game, the first Oregon game, because their offense was doing pretty well in that Oregon game. I'm going to show them, of course, the Michigan game. I'm going to show them the Indiana game, because Indiana, early on in that game, their defense was doing well against Ohio State. The other one I'm going to show them is a bit of a surprise. It was Iowa.
Yeah.
It's because that bend don't break defense of Iowa's they don't have the athletes compared to Notre Dame. Notre Dame has better athletes than
Yeah.
them. I think if Notre Dame plays that type of bend don't break defense against Ohio State, their front seven's good enough to control the run to where Ohio State can't
Hmm.
just bully them with the run, and they don't have to bring their safeties down. They can keep their safeties back, and they have to keep their safeties back because Ohio State has way too many deep threats.
Yeah.
And if they keep their safeties back, and then they keep their corners in what's called no man's land between 10 yards and the line of scrimmage, he's going to cover anything in the flat and a curl area right there. I think they could
Yeah.
do a good enough job of containing them, but the issue is Notre Dame's offense is going to have to do well. And I don't know
Exactly.
against that Ohio State front seven, their front seven is better than Notre Dame's front seven. Ohio State overall, just
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to beat them. I have them winning the whole thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You mentioned the Michigan game, and I think that Notre Dame's best play is to run a Michigan style team because to your point about the Iowa game, the Michigan game was kind of the same thing. Michigan had a bend don't break like mentality there.
they did.
They actually let them get in their like own territory pretty frequently. This wasn't like a shut them down 3-and-out consistently type of defense that we would expect from Michigan, but they just kind of bend don't break, right?
Right.
You have to kind of do that against this Ohio State team. You kind of have to let them. You kind of have to let Carnell Tate have 7 for 87 like he did in this game.
Yeah.
Like you might just be okay with that. If you can hold Jeremiah Smith to one reception for 3 yards and give up 7 for 87 to Carnell Tate, you're pretty happy with that. And Texas was probably thrilled with that, but Texas threw the game away on 2 plays.
The thing with Jeremiah Smith is you have to get him going early. You have to get
Yeah.
big plays going with him early on, or he begins to start losing confidence in himself. He's a young player. And it's not only losing confidence in himself, as a receiver on the outside, you start getting bored. If you're not getting the ball and you're not really getting involved that much, you keep running these deep routes and you're using all your energy and you're not getting the ball. You're just like, you start not only not giving up, but you're not going 100%. And then when that
Yeah,
ball is going to come your way on a big play, you're not ready for it.
exactly.
But I think if any guy's going to break that, is him. I've never seen a freshman like him. So
Yeah, sure. All right, let's do a full preview of this national championship game. Ohio State versus Notre Dame, Fighting Irish. This is going to be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. 5:30 p.m. kickoff our time. I'm looking forward to it. I know you are as well.
yes,
Ohio State is favored by 8 points in this matchup. It opened at 9.5. It's gone down a couple points, so the money's towards Notre Dame, but not by a lot. Like it's still very heavily Ohio State's favored.
yeah.
Let's do X factors. Give me the Ohio State X factor. Who is your X factor if they're going to win the national championship? Who has to be the best player on the field?
For me, I think it's going to be the two. I'm going to get two guys. It's the two running backs, Quayshawn Junsons and
Yeah.
Travion Henderson. Both those guys, I feel like if they're running the ball and they're doing very well against that Notre Dame defense and they're controlling the clock, I think that's their key to winning the game. I don't want Will
Yeah.
Howard, if I'm Ohio State, trying to make big time throws late in the game because I feel like that's when he'll make a mistake. I think if
Mm-hmm.
you're Ohio State, you want to run the ball early on, get a comfortable lead, and kind of keep that cushion.
Yeah. I had the exact same 2 players in my mind just because of what we saw the week before with Singleton and Allen just running the ball down
Yeah.
Notre Dame's throats. Like those guys, I think Singleton and Allen are better, but like Quinshon Junkins, Trayvon Henderson, that's a pretty damn good backfield too. So
Teams have issues when they
yeah,
start throwing the ball against Notre Dame.
exactly. Yep. Got to dominate the run and got to do it early. So we'll see how their game plan comes out to start because I think that'll be interesting. I'll give love to Jack Sawyer. I think he's been their best defensive player all season. You know, him and Caleb Downs are probably their 2 best players on defensive side. And Jack Sawyer feels like a disruptor.
Yes.
And if he can disrupt this game, then they'll be good defensively, right? And he might also just play a spy a lot of the time against Riley Leonard. So I think that's going to be something to keep an eye out for is how much they spy in this game because I think that Jack Sawyer is kind of the perfect archetype for who you would want to be that QB spy. Then again, I feel like, I don't know, the way that they run the ball with Riley Leonard isn't necessary for a QB spy, it feels like. I don't know. So Sawyer will be an impactful player in this game.
Well,
he's been an impactful player all season. So
another defense player, you kind of brought him up briefly, Caleb Downs, coming from Alabama, playing at Ohio State now. Hopefully Notre Dame doesn't make the mistake at the goal line to run the ball to the left side to Caleb Downs' side on a pitch. It's really stupid. I mean, he just came downhill with full pursuit and stopped it. very
Yeah,
easily. So
he's a dog. He's a freaking dog. That
Caleb
dude's
Downs is a
incredible.
very good player. If I'm Notre
Yeah.
Dame, I'm going to run most of my plays to the right side of the field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, X factor for Notre Dame. Who do you have?
Greenhouse, their wide receiver.
Great house. Yep.
Jaden Greenhouse. I think he has to have a huge game.
Great house.
Yeah, great
He's
house.
great.
Great house.
He's a great house. Yeah.
He's got to have a great game, man. He had a huge game last week. I mean, you had that huge wheel route that scored where he juked out the Penn
Yeah.
State safety. You're going to have big plays against Ohio State. You're going to have to score in order to win. And we saw Texas do that a little bit earlier this week. So for me, that's their X factor. I actually not going to say Riley Leonard. I think if Riley Leonard can get him the ball, I think they have a good chance.
Yeah. I I mean, they don't win. Actually, they could win if Riley Leonard doesn't have a great game. That's kind of the unique part about Riley Leonard is he doesn't have to do too much in this offense.
Right.
But, like, I just feel like any one of their wide receivers could step up and fill that great house role.
Yeah.
We saw Faison do it the week before. Great house this week. Like, they have guys who can step up in the right moments and just be that for their team. I also like their dispersion. Like, Great House had 7 receptions. Williams had 5. Evans had 5. Faison had 2, even though Faison was the better player the week before. It's because we trashed him for being a lacrosse kid. But I'm going to talk about Jeremiah Love some more. I think that, having that extra time off, you hope that he's 100% healthy coming into this game because they are going to have to run the football. They are going to have to run the football. I do think Ohio State's probably going to load the box on them because they're going to say Riley Leonard's not beating us with the feet. Jeremiah Love's your best offensive player outside of your quarterback, so he's not going to beat us. But they're going to have to get creative in the run game. They're going to have to get creative with their read options. They're going to have to get creative with pitches, reverses, sweeps, whatever it may be. They're going to have to get creative in this game because if they just try and run the ball down their throats, they're not going to be able to do that. So it'll kind of be interesting to see how elusive Jeremiah Love can be and not just try and run down their throats because that's not going to work. I know that. So
if I'm Notre Dame and if I'm the defensive coordinator, the film I'm going to watch from this game is, of course, you're going to watch the playoff games. I'm going to exclude those when I'm talking about the regular season. Definitely the A&M one, just because the athletes you play against playing against X-A&M. The other one's going to be USC and Louisville. Louisville had a really good passing attack, and I felt like Notre Dame, they had 24 points scored against them when Louisville played them. Watch that game and try to fix those mistakes in that game. And another one was USC. USC was able to throw the ball at them very well, too. They scored 35 points.
Yeah, and you don't watch the Northern Illinois game because that's just a complete throwaway game.
Turn that game on.
Like, that's just a complete throwaway. Like, nothing that happened in that game matters. Notre Dame's in the national championship. Yes, they lost at home to Northern Illinois. That's a fluke. We are throwing that game out. It does not matter. Like, that's how I feel. It's an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest game of the year, and it's not close.
That's one of those games. It's like, if those teams played 100 times, 99 times Notre Dame's going to win that game. I don't know how Northern Illinois won that game. That's what I'm going to do. It's crazy. Before I go to bed, I'm going to watch on YouTube
the Northern Illinois
version of the game. I didn't watch that game.
It's actually not a bad idea.
I got to see what happened.
It's actually not a bad idea. I actually might go do that too. I think it's funny. It's also crazy that the 2 worst losses this year are Notre Dame at home to Northern Illinois and Ohio State at home to Michigan. Those are probably the 2 worst losses of the year.
Dude, this is an 8-5 MAC team. It's not even like they lost like a dominating team. 8-5 in the MAC.
It's incredible.
This team had lost.
All right, I'm gonna
Buffalo. They lost to Ball State. Miami of Ohio. Come on.
Miami of Ohio was a good team. They beat CSU in the Snoop Dogg Bowl. Oh, remember?
Don't forget. Juice. Snoop Dogg Bowl.
They beat us by like 30. It was really bad. All right, let's play a little game here to end this little preview. I want you to give me what team has the edge in these categories that I give you. Okay, so we'll start with the offense. What team has the edge in the offense?
Ohio State. That's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think that's an obvious. Yeah, that's kind of where we're leaning. Who do you think has the edge on the defensive side?
The edge on the defensive side, I want to say Ohio State, but I'm actually going to give it to Notre Dame. I feel like they've been playing a really good defense in the playoffs, especially. And I feel like they're going to have their best defensive game in this national championship game. This feels like a Notre Dame team that really wants to win a national championship. So I'm going to give it to Notre Dame for defense.
I agree. I think it's hard. Like, I feel like it's harder to replicate an on-fire offense than it is to replicate an on-fire defense. And Notre Dame's defense is on fire right now.
They're more
Like,
consistent, I feel like, than Ohio State.
exactly. Yeah, they feel like they're clicking. It feels like everything is clicking at the right time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them the edge there too. Coaching. Who do you give the edge to?
Coaching, I'm going to give it to Ohio State. Just because Ryan Day, I feel like, has more experience. I do feel like Marcus Freeman's a very good coach, and I feel like it's a close matchup, and I'm going to give it to Ohio State. Not only because of that, Ohio State, just their assistant coaches. They have Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator. They have Brandon Hartline, a former NFL player, as their wide receiver coach. They have a great coaching staff. So I'm going to give it to Ohio State.
That's true. Yeah. I don't like Ryan Day as like an actual coach itself, but when you throw in their entire coaching staff, I do like them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I like Freeman a lot. I think he's just a really good coach. I think Freeman does suffer a little bit from the Dan Campbell thing, where he's more of a motivator, less of a coach, and relies on his coordinators a lot. So I do think he suffers a little bit from that, but I'm not going to discredit him for the way that he's coaching.
Ryan Day, to me, is a recruiter. And he...
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him, too, because he used to be like a really good offensive mastermind. So I think he's getting back to that.
Yeah. I like Freeman. I'm going to give him the edge.
Yeah.
All right. Who do you think's going to have more fans at this game?
Ohio State.
Atlanta, Georgia. Ohio State's going to have more?
I think Ohio State definitely. Their fan base, they always travel very well. Except that first game when they played in Columbus, I think they were so mad at the Michigan game. But especially because the dominating performances they have, I think the Ohio State fans are really going to travel out for this game. And that's not putting anything on Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a huge fan base too. But Notre Dame fan base is, I feel like, a little less intense than Ohio State. So I feel like Ohio State's going to have a slight edge in the stands.
Okay. I think it's going to be slight edge. I think it's going to be like 55-45 Ohio State. I do think the Notre Dame fans get out for this game.
They do.
Because when was the last time the Notre Dame has been in this situation?
They just have such of a big alumni compared to Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame, their student body's barely anything. It's like maybe 2,000 students in the whole school.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like they have a lot more fans who aren't necessarily alumni.
Well, yeah,
I think they'll be fine.
Notre Dame's one of those schools that have tons of fans that are just fans of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Because their post office's little brother went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the first time back in a while. And then Rudy, did you consider the people who just love Rudy?
Yes.
That's got to be like a few hundred.
They watched like their first football movie and it was Rudy and they're like, yeah, I've always kind of cheered for Notre Dame ever since then, you know?
I mean, you just have to consider that. Also, never mind. I'm not going to make that joke. All right, moving on. I think that's all that we have.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you, though. I don't like either of these teams. And you know me as I don't like Ohio State and I don't like Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know you don't.
I think Ohio State's going to win the game. I'm cheering for Notre Dame. Just based off, I like this roster over Notre Dame's a little bit better. I feel like I connect more with the roster and the coaching staff. I'm going to go with Notre Dame. That's what I'm cheering for.
Fair enough. I'm cheering for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But I do think Ohio State's going to win.
Yes.
I think we're both kind of in the same boat there, where it's like, yeah, it'd be cool if Notre Dame won, but I feel like Ohio State's going to win.
Well, because Ohio State, I know they haven't won it since 2014, but it's more recent than Notre Dame. Dude. Notre Dame hasn't won it since 1990.
Yeah. Well, Notre Dame hasn't even been there since
1989.
Manti
They haven't won it since 1989. They haven't been to a national championship since that debacle with Manti Te'o in 2012.
Yeah, exactly. Which like kind of killed their momentum for a while.
Yeah,
I think that's safe to say. I don't know if Manti Te'o's to blame for that. However, it's coincidentally that shit happened, and then they were kind of bad. So I'm excited for this game. I think people were bashing on the CFP, and people were talking about how terrible the matchups were. And here we are with the 7 seed versus the 8 seed, and people are disappointed that it's not Texas versus Georgia, right? Like people are a little bit disappointed at that, but like at the end of the day, this is what the CFP was made for. 2 teams who got hot at the right time, who made a run and got to this place because of the path that they were given.
I don't think there's going to be SEC fans complaining, but I think most of the country kind of likes it because what we saw was like kind of what you said. You saw 2 teams, Notre Dame and Ohio State. If there wasn't a 12-team playoff, these 2 teams wouldn't have been in. They probably would have been playing in like a bowl game against each other, to be honest. Because they're both
they would have been the Peach Bowl.
Number 8 would have been a great bowl game. But they're 2 teams that got into the playoff in this new system and ran the table.
Yeah,
And I think it's great for the playoff seeing two seeds, high seeds, like Notre Dame and Ohio State, making it all the way.
I agree. We started out by bashing the kind of play or talking about the playoff and how it's affected this season, but like I think at the end of the day, you look at this and you're like, "Ooh, Ohio State and Notre Dame, that's kind of fun."
It is.
Getting that as a national championship, it's a change of pace and it's different and it's exciting. And this is what the committee wanted at the end of the day. They
Yeah.
wanted a fun, exciting playoff with two teams who got hot, got a great matchup, and took advantage of it, right? And got to this moment. So here they are.
Because regardless, if we had a 4-team playoff this year, this is what we would have had. We would have had, Oregon number 1. We would have had Georgia number 2. Number
Yeah,
3, I think it would have been
probably
different.
would have been Texas.
Do you think Boise State would have got in?
Uh,
Or do you think, because I don't think it would have been the same seeding with like Arizona State and Boise State. So I think there would have been like Texas, like you said. I think Texas would have got in.
Texas definitely would have been ranked ahead of them. That's for sure. I mean, Penn State, I guess, would have been that 4 seed. It
Yeah.
would have been between Penn State or Notre Dame, right? But for that 4 seed.
And then I just
So,
think we wouldn't have seen the real national champion.
yeah.
So I think it's been
I
awesome.
mean, with the CFP rankings being Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame, Ohio State being 5 and 6, like,
Yeah.
we could have seen neither of these teams in a 14 playoff. So, and now they're both fighting for a national championship. And I think that's fun. So,
Right.
yeah, that does it for our preview of the college football playoff national championship game. I'm excited. It feels like this playoff has dragged on a very long time. I mean, it's been a full month that we're getting the first game to the last game, but I kind of like it. It's not been terrible. So
No,
I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, I thought it was.
We have 2 more things.
I think it was a great.
Go ahead. You thought it was
honestly.
great? I thought it was an all right season. I don't know.
I thought it was a pretty good season. I think we had some. Every college football season is great to me, but
Oh, yeah.
to me, it was.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun from the perspective of like new conferences, the bowl, the CFP playoff committee every week, like where everyone gonna line up in the bracket. Like I think that was fun.
Yeah.
I think the novelty might wear off either next season or a couple seasons from now. But for now, it was fun this year. It was fun. I don't know if it was like a great season, but it was a fun season. We'll say that.
Yeah.
So 2 more things. Carson Beck, Miami. Goes to
Carson
be with
Beck,
his
dude. This is the biggest
beautiful
storyline to me of the
girlfriend
week. I mean,
in-
is Cavalier.
I
how do you
forget
pronounce her
which
name?
Cavalier it is.
Cavalier.
One of them's dating Jake Ferguson. Cavender.
Yeah, Cavender. Whatever. Yeah. So
Cavender.
one of them
Yeah.
dating Jake Ferguson.
One of them is dating. Exactly. And the other one is dating Carson Beck. I don't know which one's which.
I mean, she recruited him to Miami for them, basically.
Yeah. This, like, when Carson Beck entered the transfer portal, it was basically a done deal.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? He's going to go to what was the other option they were talking about? I think they were talking about Ohio State at some point.
They were talking about that.
It's like,
They were
what's he
talking
gonna
about
do?
Texas Tech too. I don't know. I thought
Yeah,
just because I'm involved with Texas Tech, but I was seeing Texas Tech Twitter talk about we want Morton over Beck, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't really. This is stupid.
It was stupid. Yeah. What's he going to do? Go be with his smoking hot girlfriend and live in Miami for a year?
He's not going.
Or he's going to go to
He was never going to
Lubbock,
go to
Texas.
Lubbock.
Even Ohio State. He
Yeah.
was never going to Ohio State. Like, it was kind of dumb that people even like decided to talk about it as where's Carson Beck going to transfer? I think the discussion was more about like, why didn't he just go to the pros? I know he had a terrible year, but like still, once again, it's not a great quarterback class. Drew Aller decided to come back. Why didn't you just go pro? Get drafted maybe in the first round? I understand your draft stock went bad, but like,
Well,
I don't know.
he's making around $4 million in NIL.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Will Levis, I'll tell you this for an example, because Will Levis is probably drafted to where he was going to be drafted the second round.
Probably.
Will Levis is making around $900,000 a year.
That makes sense.
So I think
Yeah.
Beck was kind
That's
of
the
like,
reason.
why don't I go to Miami, have a pretty good year in the ACC. They're going to be able to, probably looked at Cam Ward's stats. He's like, I'm going to be able to throw the ball a lot in Miami
Yeah.
on these ACC defense. I'm playing like Wake Forest. I'm not playing
Yeah.
South Carolina, so I can throw the ball a lot. I think Bart Beck looked at it not only for his girlfriend, but I think it's a better decision for him to kind of do the Cam Ward route. What Cam Ward did, if Cam Ward would have went to the pros after Washington State, he was almost going to do that. He would have got drafted in
Yeah,
like the third round.
that's true.
And now Cam Ward's going to be like the number one pick, maybe. So
Here's where I feel like the difference is, though. Cam Ward went to a like almost dying Miami program and kind of revitalized them. And now Carson Beck is trying to go fill Cam Ward's shoes. I just feel like the pressure in that situation is just way higher than it needed to be. Cam Ward had basically zero pressure whatsoever. They
yeah,
were just kind of like, yeah, Cam Ward, new exciting player. Let's see what he can do. Now they're like, well, hey, we just had Cam Ward. Carson Beck, you better be fucking good or we're going to run you out of town.
that's what I think too. And that got to be a distraction with the girlfriend going to your school with you, and because
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
a social media star,
Yeah.
them doing
Yeah.
all these TikToks together and stuff.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and when he was at Georgia later on the season when he started doing bad, I noticed a lot of those times. Like for instance, when he had the 3 picks against Florida,
Yeah.
a couple days before he was in Miami with her.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny.
So that's a situation, and I don't know if Cristobal is going to be a guy that's going to be able to handle that.
No, he's not a great coach to begin with, so we know that. All right. Let's wrap this up here. I know this is a college football podcast, but we're kind of diving into the NFL space a little bit.
Okay.
I told you I have a bold prediction for the Cowboys head coach.
And I've been trying to guess it.
And you were trying to guess it right off the bat, and I said, no, it's a college player, or no, it's a college coach, and then you threw a couple more out there, and I was like, also no. Like, this is... you're gonna give me your top 3, what you decided on as your best 3 predictions for what I think is going to happen. Even though what I think is going to happen, it's probably going to end up being too late, and they're probably just going to like sign Jason Witten, which would be a disaster. But anyways, who do you think my top 3 candidates are for the Cowboys head coaching job from college football?
Top 3, you'd have to either buy out Bill Belichick from his North Carolina contract. I don't think that's going to happen because he's already hired a staff there and everything. But I'm still going to put him on that list. Deion Sanders, of course. And the other one I was going to say is Lincoln Riley, just because he's relatively knows the area and be a good chance for him to jump to the NFL and put kind of his offense into an NFL space. So those are my top.
Yeah,
for sure.
So those were a couple guys that I was thinking about, right? Obviously, they've talked about Bill Belichick and buying out his contract. They've talked about how much they want him. They're not going to do that. Jerry Jones isn't going to pay that much money. Okay.
Yeah.
Deion. It's kind of this continuous, perpetual thing with Deion, where it's like, Deion to the Cowboys. When's it going to happen? You know, I don't think they'll do that. Just because I feel like if Deion's going to go to the league, he's going to want to coach Shador. And I don't think the Cowboys are going to be willing to give up that and go take Shador just for him to sit on the bench behind Dak. So I don't think that makes sense from Deion's side. No. I think it makes sense from the Cowboys side, but I don't think it makes sense from Deion's side.
Absolutely.
I think Deion says no in that situation. The Lincoln Riley thing's interesting because, like you said, you know, he kind of knows the area. The only problem with Lincoln Riley is he's been terrible for like 3 seasons now. So,
but with that, I feel like that's his defense and his inability to recruit defense. And I feel like with the NFL, you can kind of rely on your defensive coordinator, and you have a lot of talent in the NFL. So I feel like that's going to help him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Here is my coach that I think the Dallas Cowboys could go after, and I would personally actually be okay with this as a hire.
Okay.
Let me paint the picture. Coach wins the national championship last season, Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
What does he do? He goes to the league. If Notre Dame wins the national championship and Jerry looks at Marcus Freeman and goes, how much do we have to pay you to come be our head coach? That's an opportunity of a lifetime. Marcus Freeman could go out on top of the world, and then go coach the Dallas Cowboys. And I think he's a good fit.
I think what the
Cowboys need. I think what the Cowboys need is a good motivator. They don't need like Marcus Freeman. He's a fine recruiter. He's a fine coach, but he's a great motivator. And I think that's what the Cowboys need more than anything else. That's why I like.
Well, he's a former player
some of the
too.
other guys.
A really great player. The thing with him, I think that's a good. I never thought of that one. I mean, I think that'd be a good hire for them. I think he would take it too, because if you win the national championship at Notre Dame, Has been done since
What else do you have to do?
1989. It's going to be hard to do it again. It's hard to recruit at Notre Dame. So I would, if I were him and I got a Cal, I would leave. And Notre Dame fans are not going to get mad at you because you just won them a national championship.
And Jerry's the type of guy to go, ooh, this guy just won a national championship. Bring him to me. Give me him. I want him. Like, I don't think there's any way that this I think there's like a 5% chance that this happens. Like by prediction, I mean it's like it's a bold prediction, but like it's a 0% chance if they don't win the national championship. So if they win the national championship, I think Jerry looks at him. I think they look at him. I don't know if they hire him, but they look at him. I don't know.
I was hoping you didn't
it's
say
possible.
Ryan Day. I was like, bro, Ryan Day?
No.
Oh, you want
Ryan Day? Yeah, they wouldn't do Ryan Day. And Ryan Day is just better suited as a college coach anyways. So
I don't get the Cowboys. Why do you guys do everything last minute with the Cowboys? You guys are the biggest procrastinators out there. Michael Carter, wait until his contract's like over, and you're just like, oh yeah, oh it's over. Oh, you want to come back? This is what we're gonna give you. Oh, you don't? Okay, cool. Who are you gonna get now? Like
I'm convinced.
Wasted all this time. Everyone else already interviewed all the top candidates. You haven't even interviewed any of the candidates now.
Yeah, I'm convinced that Jerry Jones doesn't own a calendar.
I think Jerry Jones just sits there and still thinks like everyone's waiting on the Cowboys. Like I think it's Ben Johnson's like sitting in his house like, I want the Cowboys job.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Can I give you my actual prediction of who they're going to hire?
Yeah.
It's either going to be Jason Witten or Joe Brady. It's going to be one of those two guys.
Yeah, I can see that.
Jason Witten, because obviously the Cowboys relation, and he'll be a Jerry Jones whipping boy. And Joe Brady kind of for the same reason. Like, I think he would just fall in line and be a Jerry Jones whipping boy. And he's a good enough offensive mind. And they go, well, we have a good offense. We need an offensive coach.
Now, would Jason Witten bring on Tony Romo? Oh, I don't know, Jim. We got to do this.
I think Tony's pretty happy where he is. I know everybody listening and watching football at home would want Tony to go coach the Cowboys instead.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the Tony stuff has rubbed people the wrong way, I think is the nice way of putting it. I think people are very annoyed with Mr. Tony Romo at this point.
I'm over it.
Which, to be fair, like, here's the thing. I said this in our fantasy group chat. I will take Tony Romo doing Tony Romo things way over Tom Stuttery in the booth.
Yes.
And I will stand by that because I can't listen to someone have to like repeat himself 5 times and not know what he's going to say. As with Tony, who's just like, he figures out what he's going to say by going,
yeah, right here, Jim.
He just figures out what he's going to say during that moment. You know, I think that's smart.
My like dream crew, as far as like a crew announcing a football game, and I wish they would do it on like Amazon or something. Just like have Al Michaels retire. I love Al Michaels, right?
Yeah.
Put him somewhere else or have him retire, right? Even Herb Street, put him somewhere else. Make Thursday nights fun by having these guys: Tony Romo, Chris Collinsworth, and bring back John Gruden. Have him in the middle.
Bring back John Gruden from Barstool.
Yes. And have those three in a Thursday night football together.
All 3 color guys, just no play-by-play.
Yes.
They're just talking out there.
Yes. I just want nonsense. Because that's what Thursday night football is.
Can I give you I think if I were to like craft who I want as a best NFL commentary duo right now, I think it's Kevin Burkhardt and Chris Collinsworth. I think those, like, play-by-play, I think Kevin Burkhardt is the best play-by-play right now.
Yeah,
I really do. Like, he carries Brady, and he's gotten better because of how bad Brady's been. Like, he's actually gotten so much better this year because he's had to, like, fill in for Brady.
I miss Olsen.
So I think Burkhardt... Olsen's good, too. Like, Olsen is still good. Like, he's still a good color guy. I'd actually have Olsen over Romo or Brady at this point.
Yeah.
But, like, there's something about Collinsworth, man. He's just so, like, he's so good.
I love him.
He's so simple. He's straight to the point. Yes, he glazes the fuck out of players, and I fucking love it. But, like, there's just something about Collinsworth that is just so perfect. It's so perfect.
Those thighs of Derrick Henry are almost like when you're at Wingstop and you get that extra wing in there and you're, no, this is pretty good.
Just his analogies are so good. And I, like, I just feel like he doesn't work with Tirico very well.
You
And
watch
I'd
Sunday
say
Night
put him back
Football
with
for
Michaels, but
Collinsworth. That's what I watch it for most
yeah,
sometimes. Just to hear
exactly.
him say really crazy stuff in the back.
Exactly. And I'd say put him back with, Al Michaels, but or Jim Nance. Just put him with one of the other guys. But I feel like Burkhart has taken that step up, and I think he's better than those guys now. So I like Burkhart.
My favorite moment of Chris Collinsworth is back in his playing days when he was on the Bengals. There was a taco place in Cincinnati. I don't know if you've seen the commercial with him, and he's got the sombrero on, and he's shaking.
I haven't seen this.
It's really bad.
I'll have to look it up.
You have to look up Chris Collinsworth Mexican restaurant, Cincinnati. It's amazing.
That is so funny. That's amazing.
He's like, that's what I call a taco.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
All right, that does it for this podcast. National championship game. Do we want to do one right after it on Monday?
Yeah, we'll just talk about the game right after the game.
Yeah, we can stay up. It won't be that late. Game starts at 5:30, so we will make sure that we're
I'm off on
up and ready
too,
for that game.
So,
oh, nice,
yeah,
nice. So yeah, we will record right after the national championship game. That podcast will be up Tuesday for you guys next week. So
guys,
pay attention to that.
We'll have our Max edit it.
Our Max, what?
Pardon my take, Max.
Oh yeah,
we don't have.
I got a message him. I'm Max. What are you talking about?
If there is a Max out there that knows how to edit podcasts and you want to join the crew for free,
what are you talking about? This is my job. I edit podcasts. We don't need to hire someone.
I'm outsourcing.
Outsourcing for what?
I thought you needed me to outsource.
Here's the thing about every sport today. If you compare it to Pardon My Take, I am Max, I am Big Cat. Whoever I have as the guest is PFT. And then I'm also probably Memes, just because I don't know. I don't know what that guy does. He posts stuff on Twitter.
I don't know what he does either.
Yeah, good job by him. He got a job for posting stuff on Twitter. So, good for him.
He does a great job.
All right. That does it for the podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. Cooper Barkwell, we will see you next week. Right after the national championship game. I'm excited for it. Let's get ready.
Yeah. See you guys later.